I'm a little bit irked right now. Hi, if you don't know who I am, my name is Steven. My username on Roblox is Steven underscore scripts, and I'm a Roblox developer. I have made several, like nothing too famous, nothing like front page material, but some semi-popular games. I made Bus Stop Simulator, I made Warm Isolation, and I made GZARP, which is short for Generic Zombie Apocalypse Roleplay. Anyway, I'm here to talk about that second one, to talk about Warm Isolation, because yesterday I woke up to my game being taken down. It is currently under review. If you go to the page, here, like I'll click on it here, you'll see that it says page cannot be found or no longer exists. So the game is currently taken down. I can still access it in Studio, and I can still edit it, but no one can play it right now. As you can see, it has 0 players because no one can access the game. And this is because Warm Isolation recently got impacted by a policy change to Roblox's maturity and compliance questionnaire, which is a questionnaire that you can do for any game you own to determine its age rating. So, this story starts 2 days ago, August 18th, when I was retaking this questionnaire because I had heard there had been some updates to it. I hadn't looked into specifically what the changes were, which that's my bad. I should have researched it first. But I saw that a new question had appeared saying that if my game primarily takes place within a private setting, which meant a bedroom or a bathroom, then I would have to increase the age rating to restricted, which also means 17 plus. You have to verify your ID for Roblox to make sure that you are 17 or older in order to play these games. Obviously, this is really bad for players. This locks off your game from a lot of people because Roblox is primarily made for kids. It's like, I don't know the exact statistics, but it's a large percentage of the people playing are children. Warm Isolation did not feature any themes that I thought would have given it or warranted a 17 plus age rating until recently because of this recent policy change to the questionnaire, where now if a game takes place in a bedroom or a bathroom or hell maybe even a living room, depending on how they quantify like a small amount of people, then your game is 17 plus automatically. So at first I thought like, okay, this is no big deal, right? Here's what I'll do. I'm going to change Warm Isolation to not be a bedroom and a bathroom, but rather it's a public art exhibit in which you are rudely trespassing. So I did this because I thought it wasn't a big deal, right? I didn't research this. I didn't check my inbox. They had actually sent a message about this, and they'd also made like a dev forum post. I'm very bad with checking my email. That's a me problem. But I thought this wasn't a big deal, so I was just like, okay, I'll tear off the roof and I'll cut down one of these walls, and I'll say like, hey, maybe this will just be like a temporary change. Maybe they'll figure out a better wording for whatever they're trying to achieve here, and then once that is done, I can put this game back, right? No, because after I made this tweet and this got 2,000 likes, the very next day the game was taken down. So, uh, yeah, that was an unpleasant surprise. After looking into it, I realized like, okay, this is actually like a big deal because the reason that this policy change was enacted, this was not some like random kind of like small decision that wasn't a big deal. No, this was a big deal because something that Roblox has been involved in recently. There's been a lot of scrutiny on Roblox, specifically in the child safety department. There's been a lot of talk about like how Roblox is not doing a good enough job of protecting the kids on its platform from harm, from grooming, from predators, from just really anything concerning things that children should not have to see or situations children should not have to get into. That was not being prevented enough on Roblox. And I can confirm this. I know this is a big issue. This has been a big issue for a long time. If you ask any long-time Roblox player what happens when you report someone, you know what the answer you're going to get 99% of the time is going to be? It's going to be nothing. You report a player, nothing happens. That is the common consensus. That is not just a rumor or circulation. That is the consensus for what happens when you report a player. Now, Roblox has gotten a little bit better at this over the years. They've implemented like a system for telling you when a player you reported gets actually like gets punished, which is like a basic thing you should have on any social media platform. But Even with all the changes they made, it still hasn't been enough. Children keep getting into danger, and the big thing that kind of like set off this public outcry was the banning of a user called Schlep. Now, Schlep is, or was, I should say, a very prolific content. I don't even want to say content creator. He's not. That's not even what he does. He was a community member who did a lot of work in catching predators on the platform. That was his whole thing. And he was really good at it. He's very, very well respected. And recently he was banned because because it was determined that his behavior violated the terms of service. There is a lot of people think that it's because of the like vigilantism clause that they added to the policy. That's I don't think that's it. I think it's actually the fact that you can't impersonate someone else, or like you can't give like a fake identity on the Roblox platform, because, and this is like a catfishing thing, right? It's like they're supposed to, that rule is there to stop catfishing. But in the case of Schlep, that meant that like pretending to be like a minor, for example, to like get a predator out to somewhere where they can then like catch them. That was not something that was allowed. And also in the vigilantism rule, they were like, this is a whole change they made about, no, we're not going to allow vigilantism on the platform anymore. We're not going to allow like sting operations because this can encourage behavior that violates the terms of service. Like, fair enough, right? I understand the thought process behind how Schlep got banned. It is still very, very stupid that it happened. But anyway, this is kind of like a little this is a little thing that's happening on the side besides all of like the free Schlep hashtag that's trending, is this policy change that Roblox made to their maturity and compliance questionnaire, where they decided that to take care of a specific kind of game, which is like I don't really know what to call them. I don't know if there's a name for them, but one really big one was XYZ Public Bathroom Simulator. This was a Roblox game that was up on the platform for a long time. That was, I did not, and I don't know what was inside the game, but I could assume that it was a public bathroom. And this was a game that was like a hotbed for people engaging in violative behavior of the sexual kind. Now, this has been kind of a recurring issue on Roblox, where there's like a specific kind of creator who will make a game that is meant for this kind of behavior, but not include anything in the game that explicitly violates terms of service. So they'll make the thumbnail and the icon kind of risque, but not in a way that Roblox could like get on their case about it. And if they do, they just change out the icon or thumbnail. And in the game itself, there's nothing explicitly inappropriate. It's just like a setting that happens to be really suitable for a certain kind of violative behavior, like a game that is primarily set in a bedroom, for example. And so that was the philosophy behind this new change of like they're kind of going nuclear, and they're being like, we're just going to straight up not allow any Roblox games that take place in a private space. They lumped it in with the question of the questionnaire question for romantic themes. This is the updated version of that question. It used to say just like, does this experience depict or reference romantic themes? Now it says, does this experience depict or reference romantic themes and or primarily take place in private spaces, for example, shower stalls, hotel rooms, bedrooms, or settings intended for adults, for example, clubs, bars. Now, I understand the philosophy behind this decision. I understand why they did it. I still think this is a very dumb idea, and I'm not just saying that because it impacted my game. This is a nuclear option. This impacts a lot of games. If you have any game that primarily takes place inside a bedroom, or a bathroom, or like I guess a small tent, that would be more uncommon, but like any of those settings, like basically just any room in a house, I would reckon, because they say it has to be like designed for activities that are personally secluded and designed for one person or for a very small number of people. Depending on how they qualify a small number of people, you might not even be able to allow a living room to be something that's the primary setting of your game. Now, there's some misunderstanding of people saying like, okay, so games just can't have bedrooms now. That's not true. It's, if a game primarily focuses on a bedroom, then it's 17 plus. But even with that, Warm Isolation is an example of a game that, I mean, if you think I'm lying, then there's nothing I can do about that. But I will tell you, I tried to design this game to prevent this kind of behavior. I was not facilitating this behavior. I did not hear any reports of this kind of thing happening. This was not, to my knowledge, to the fullest extent of what I had known about the audience of my game and about the behavior of the players in my game. Nobody had been doing that in Warm Isolation. I specifically designed this game with preventative measures to discourage that kind of behavior. So for context, like, this is kind of in the genre of what people call vibe games. Now, this is like a big trend in I want to say like 2018, 2016. I don't know the exact year, but it was the genre of like aesthetic hangout games where you chose a specific vibe. That's what they call a vibe game, and you just built an environment around that vibe, whether it be like a cozy, warm color palette or kind of like a cool neon purple color palette, something like that. And it's supposed to be like a cozy setting in which you just like chill and you just sit around with friends. Now, something that a lot of these games did was they had like seats that were kind of like it felt like they were intended for couples, where they would be like two seats next to each other that had like if you sat down in those seats, there'd be a custom animation, and if both players sat down, you would have like an arm over the shoulder, you'd have them kind of like leaning on each other and, you know, cuddling, something like that. This was something that I didn't want to implement this in my game, and I specifically made sure that this was something that didn't happen at all. I made all the seats visible, right? So these are all the places in which you can sit in the game. They're marked by these like black little square plates. These are all the places you can sit. And you'll notice that if we look at the bed here, these are all spaced apart. I made sure that none of these were touching each other, that the animations that played here, none of them made any physical contact with each other. Furthermore, there's a vote kick system in Warm Isolation. If someone happens to be a big jerk or they're doing something inappropriate, you can vote kick them from the server using a majority vote. These were all things that I had implemented to make sure that this was not something that was encouraged in my game. This was something that was disincentivized. This was like I was trying to actively hinder this kind of behavior. And from what I had heard, it had worked. The game had very good ratings. And it got very popular. If I scroll down on this post here, you can see my game got 71 million visits and a 93% rating. If there was violative behavior happening in Warm Isolation, the rating would not be 93%, I assure you. Those other games I talked about, the ones that actually house this kind of behavior, they get dislike bombed to hell. They have horrible ratings. It's like 40% or under. A game with 93% rating does not indicate there is violative behavior happening in it. But none of this matters. You know why? None of this matters to Roblox. Because it is a blanket ban. They have said in their dev forum post, which I'll pull that up. This is the dev forum post, strengthening our safety policies and tools. They said here, although these experiences may not be violative of our policies, we've seen that some settings attract a higher percentage of violated behavior. Given that, and out of an abundance of caution, we've decided to make this content inaccessible except to users who are ID verified 17+. All users are still required to follow our community standards everywhere, which prohibit sexually suggestive content or behavior everywhere on the platform. So they are aware this is a nuclear option. They are fully knowledgeable that this is impacting games that had nothing to do with whatever they were trying to target. And they're still going forward with that decision. They're still going forward with this. I contacted appeals and I had like several questions there. Of course, they answered none of them and they sent a pre-generated response. I was, naively assuming I would actually get a human response, but anyway. The only way that I can reinstate Warm Isolation is if I decide to give it a 17+ rating, which I have reluctantly decided to do because that's kind of the only option I have at this point. As you can see now, content maturity is now restricted because it, according to the questionnaire, has romance. Because it's a private space, because it is set in a bedroom, and they lump it in. They don't even give it a different tag. They don't say private spaces, except for the other question under social hangout. If you answer yes to that, they default to romance. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I think this is a really, really idiotic decision for several reasons, and I'm going to get into that. The first thing is, like, I wouldn't be as mad about this if it weren't for the fact that there was another clause they could have invoked if they wanted to have like something in the rules to point to for like why are we taking these games down? Why are we taking down these games that technically abide by terms of service? Like it would be one thing if this policy was put in place because they didn't have anything else to point to, but they did. And that clause is right here. I have it pulled up. This is Section 6 under Restrictions on Use under the creator terms in the Roblox Terms of Use. So this is paragraph 3. If we find an experience, group, or community in which a significant portion of users are egregiously violating the Roblox terms, Roblox reserves the right in its sole discretion to moderate the experience, group, or community if the creator or group/community owners do not take reasonable actions to limit the violative behavior. If Roblox determines in its sole discretion that a creator or group/community owner has violated the Roblox terms in their application and or administration of their experience rules or group/community, Roblox reserves the right in its sole discretion to moderate the creator or group/community owner. So what does all that jargon mean? That just means if a massive majority of the players in a game or a group or a community are violating the rules, then the developer has some responsibility essentially to make sure that this behavior is discouraged, to make sure that there is some kind of punishment for this behavior if an egregious amount of it is happening. Now, this rule was added all the way back in January of 2024. This was added over a year ago. But if it's been used at all, the community hasn't heard of it, because I haven't heard of any game being banned over this clause. The situation with The Hunt and Teddy being invited, who, if you didn't know, is a creator who is notorious for making games of the type that I was describing. Like, he was like the definition of a creator who made these types of games. He had so many of these. When he was invited to The Hunt, a lot of attention was brought to the fact that not only did Roblox mistakenly invite this creator to an official Roblox event, but this creator is still on the platform. This creator's been banned previously, made another account, and kept doing the same thing, and his account was still up. Now, I don't know what kind of shenanigans was going on internally that meant it took so long for them to take action, but his account, and furthermore, his games, were up for a very, very long time. So, Teddy's games do not invoke the clause under restrictions on use. They do not invoke the significant portions of user, the clause in which a significant portion of users are egregiously violating the Roblox terms. That is not invoked. Maybe not necessarily it wasn't invoked for this next one, but it took a long, if it was, it took a long time for it to be used, which is a XYZ Public Bathroom Simulator. That game was taken down recently, but it was up for a long time. I don't know the exact duration. I don't really like keep very close tabs on like Roblox drama. I try not to. It's like just usually a mess, and it weighs on your mental health. But that game was up for a long time, and it wasn't taken down until very, very recently, until there was a public outcry over the existence of these games, over all of these major decisions that Roblox was making or choosing not to make, or for whatever reason wasn't able to make in the moment. So my question here then is, if all of Teddy's games don't invoke the clause under Section 6, if XYZ Public Bathroom Simulator doesn't invoke the clause under Section 6, then what game does? How far does a game's community have to go? How much violated behavior do we need to see before they can use that clause? They've had more than a year to determine internally what that clause means for them, to determine which games, where exactly the line is for when a game's community is determined to be egregiously violating the terms of service. They have had over a year to determine that, and yet the only way that this could have continued happening, the way that they could have continued like not using this clause, is either they somehow completely forgot they added that, or they still don't know how to enforce it after a year of it being in the terms of use. And because they couldn't sort that out, because they couldn't sort out what it meant for a game's community to be egregiously violating the Roblox terms, they decided instead that they were going to put in this new policy that puts a blanket ban on any Hangout game, or even really any game in general that takes place in a private setting. Now, you might think, like, okay, well, that sucks, but, you know, it does target those kinds of games. It targets the kind of games where they house this sort of violative behavior. They don't like explicitly say you have to do it, but it's very obvious, like that's what it's made for. They do target that, and they do make it so that those creators have to jump through more hoops to get this kind of content up onto the platform. And to that I say, it is true that this is adding more hoops for bad actors to have to jump through. But it doesn't stop them. And even worse, it makes it even harder for honest creators to make games. For honest creators who are unlucky enough to have a game idea they want to put into place that falls under the category of taking place primarily in a private space. Think about this, right? If you want to make a game, if you're a bad actor on Roblox and your objective is to make a Roblox game in which you can house this violative behavior, in which this is like the main thing that players are there to do, then what do you do about this recent policy change? Well, it did say primarily taking place within a private space. So one thing that you could do as someone who's trying to make a space for this purpose is just don't make it a private space. It might not make, it sounds like it doesn't make sense at first, but like think about it. If you were like a player on Roblox during the 2010s, you've probably seen a game or two that's like beach roleplay, pool roleplay, where they had like a skinny dip morph, where it's just completely nude. They just took your clothes off. It's something that you could do. You just go completely nude in that game. And of course, these games got dislike bombed to hell. No one liked that this was something that was on the platform. But we saw those there. We saw those games appear. What is stopping people from doing that again now? You don't need to have a private space to house this violative behavior. But even if you insist on having that, even if these creators are like, we gotta have the bedrooms, we gotta have the beds, this is something that I will not budge on, we gotta have that. Well, they still have options. And you know why? Because of this specific wording. Primarily. So what you can do instead is you can create so we'll say like a park or like a city block and have somewhere outdoors be the place that you spawn in, be the place that you start when you join the game, and then just happen to have some private bedrooms in the buildings that you can enter. But like in terms of square footage, the outdoor area still takes out like 50% or more. If you do that, then it's technically not primarily taking place within private spaces, and you can say that, hey, I don't have to say yes to this question in the questionnaire because my game is primarily taking place within a public space. It's not my fault players are all going to these private bedrooms. I can't control what areas the player base goes to. I am just an innocent developer. I'm just making this nice little park that happens to have buildings nearby, and no one's using the park. I feel so sad, right? So that's how they get around that. Another thing is like, something that you can also point out is that even with that, these games do technically qualify as social hangout games. If your game is a social hangout, it has to receive a moderate restriction or higher. So in terms of like age rating, that is equivalent to like 13 plus games, right? So there's that, right? You might think, okay, well, at least these games are restricted to 13 plus. That's something, right? It'd still be counted as a social hangout game. So at least people or kids under 13 are protected. Wrong. Because if these people really want to maximize revenue, if they really want to like squeeze as much money as they can out of these games, which by the way, if you've stooped low enough to exposing children to sex online, then you are definitely you're probably not thinking about the ethics of how far you can go, right? You kind of already crossed the line and gone the full 9 yards. Let's say it's like, okay, we want to maximize revenue. We want to get everyone we can, even if it's kids. You can also do that. They still have options. You know why? Because it's incredibly easy to make a game considered not a social hangout. Make a bunch of fetch quests. These are very easy to program. Make a bunch of quests where NPCs are like, hey, I've lost my scarf. Can you go find it? And then you go run around the map and you find the scarf and you bring it back and they'll give you money for it. And then you can say, hey, the objective of this game is an exploration game. These players are meant to explore this wide environment that I've created, and they're supposed to rack up money by doing these quests. And that's the gameplay loop. It's really, really easy to employ a gameplay loop into your game. And I don't think Roblox realized that when they added this rule. So if you are a bad actor intending to make a game of this type with just a tiny bit of scripting and a tiny bit more effort put into the development of the environment, you can avoid getting it rated 17 plus, and you can avoid getting it rated 13 plus. You can have it be for all ages. and feature this violative behavior. If you know how to loophole correctly, which is not very hard to do, as I've explained. These are very, very easy changes to implement for any developer who is worth their salt. Now, what happens then to all of the developers who are honestly trying to make a genuine game that does not house this violative behavior, that is just a regular game that they're making because they're passionate about making games? That's where they run into issues. If you are making a game for the sake of making a good game, you are going to have a creative vision. Like Warm Isolation. This game does have a meaning. This is a game about agoraphobia. The fact that it takes place primarily within a bedroom is because people with agoraphobia are scared to leave their rooms a lot of the time. That's a common like experience of agoraphobia. It's like they have like you have a particular space that feels comfortable to you, like a particular space that feels safe, and it feels like very, very, it's like unthinkable to even leave that space, to get out, to go outside, to go into a public space. Like it sounds terrifying. And like there's this massive long hallway that you have to go through to even just leave your room, not even go outside. You don't get the chance to go outside. You get the chance to go into the living room. That takes like 5 minutes to go through this massive hallway. This is a game that has meaning behind it. I designed this game with a vision. If this game no longer takes place within a bedroom, it's fundamentally not the same game. It is a different game. It tells a different story. If you are outdoors, if this is an outdoor setting and there's a weird random hallway that is really long and you're clearly outside already, that's no longer a game about agoraphobia. That's a surreal game about a long hallway that leads into a living room, or a game about a house where the roof and the walls are missing. That's not the same game. So what ends up happening, right? Because of this policy change, real creators, honest, sincere creators are being hurt many, many times more than the actual bad actors they're trying to target. We have to jump through 15 hoops. They have to jump through 3. Does that sound like a net positive? Because to me, that doesn't sound like a net positive. That sounds like they are actively hindering real creators in an attempt to make the platform safer. And the benefit that we're getting out of this, in terms of platform safety, is minuscule. If their tactic is, we want to make our policies so robust that these games that kind of scooch up to the line of acceptability still aren't allowed, this is not the way to do it. You have to word your policies more carefully. You can't do blanket bans like this. If we keep going at this rate, we're gonna have no games on the platform because everything will be banned. Everything will be impossible to create because Roblox will keep saying we don't allow this, we don't allow this, we don't allow this. You know what rules lawyering punishes? Rules lawyering punishes the people trying to play by the rules. It doesn't punish the people trying to loophole. So, I've contacted the appeals team, and they got back to me, and they said that if I retake the maturity and compliance questionnaire and I make Warm Isolation 17+, they will reinstate the game. I've reluctantly decided to do that because I don't have any other option. Like, this game will not be the same if it even is an option for me to change the game to be compliant, even without raising its age rating to restricted, to raising it to 17+. It would just be a fundamentally different game. It wouldn't have the same vision that I had when I first made the game. And so I might see if I can make a separate version of Warm Isolation that is that's 13+. It would still have to be qualified as a social hangout, but I maybe if I remove the walls, if I remove the bath, remove the toilet, remove the bed, maybe Roblox would let me have the game up for 13+. But at that point, what's left? You know? Like, why even play the game? So, yeah, and it's a shame because this, I know it might not seem like, to people who've been following development of Warm Isolation and have heard radio silence, I'm sorry. The game still does mean a lot to me. It's just that I don't like to spend like egregious amounts of time on one project. I like to try and focus on only one project at a time. And if I start a new project, I'll generally be leaving the last one behind. I try to get my games to a complete state where I can say like I'm happy leaving it where it is and it's nothing is like super broken. And I believe I've gotten to that point with Warm Isolation. Again, if you're someone who's like been a big fan of Warm Isolation, I'm sorry for the lack of updates, and I'm sorry that this is how things had to turn out. But it's not my choice. I don't have a say in the matter here. This is a this is a change that Roblox decided that they were going to do, and if the way that I was received by the Roblox support team or the Roblox appeals team is anything to go by, they're gonna be pretty harsh from now on about this kind of thing. I just hope that no more games get impacted by this kind of nuclear scorched earth approach, because I understand what they're trying to do, and I know that this is a serious issue, and I appreciate that there is initiative finally being taken to actually moderate these games and make sure that kids are being protected to the extent that they need to be on a platform like this. But I mean, this is not helping. And I guess again, there's a minuscule benefit. There's a small benefit, and in exchange, you're hurting so many creators. But Warm Isolation will probably be back up soon. All I had to do was increase it to 17 plus. So you're gonna, if you want to play Warm Isolation, it will still be up. You're just gonna have to be 17 or older and go through age verification by showing your ID. So yeah, I guess it could have ended worse. The game could have been taken down permanently for me giving snark to Roblox, but it is what it is, I guess.